Hello, this is James St. James, and in this episode we're going to be defining stress. Join me on my journey as I integrate ancient and modern medicine to reverse engineer intuitive healing so that you can re-engineer your body and mind to live vibrantly once again. When I was reading through the medical literature, through many, possibly even thousands of research articles that I was going through, in the results and conclusion sections for many major diseases, what I kept running into was the authors attributing the causation for these chronic disorders as stress or daily stress. They would say something like, oh, well, we have this heart condition or heart disease in general, or even cancer. And what they would say is at the end of the article, we don't know exactly what it could be. It could be because of these environmental factors, and it could also be due to stress. And for me, that popped a question in my mind because I'm a very curious person. I thought, well, what is this stress or this daily stress, and why is it causing all these diseases? Then also the engineer part of me was thinking, well, if we solve stress and we don't have any more stress, then, and maybe we can even reverse the stress, then maybe we won't have to deal with those diseases. We've all heard that stress negatively impacts our lives. Maybe you've heard from friends that, hey, you look stressed out, or you said, oh, I feel stressed lately, or man, I'm carrying a lot of stress these days. So we know that stress is a major part of our lives and is causing us to feel not good and possibly even lead to many diseases. Knowing this, I went into the medical literature to see what I could find, and I searched through using Google a million results that included stress, and through what I could find, none of the research articles actually clearly defined stress, like where to find it, what it is, how it shows up on a chemical basis, electrical basis, or a mechanical basis. There was nothing that actually defined exactly what stress is. Now, for me, as a science enthusiast, that was really troubling to me because there's so many research papers out there talking about this concept of stress, talking about the causation of many prevalent diseases in our society as being stress. And so I think that normally when science touches upon a topic, it's very usual for there to be like an avenue of research in that area. However, if you were to map like the scientific discovery out like in a map, it would look like a spider web where you find like, the usual topics in the middle that are covered, such as anatomy, physiology, biochemistry. And then on the outer edges is like kind of these very specific little things where there's like little points, and people who are pioneering science are ever expanding this web of scientific discovery. However, when it comes to this one topic, it seems like there's a spider web of discovery, but there's a giant hole right in the center. And what is in that giant hole of scientific discovery? It seems to be this word called stress. It seems to be like this topic that, scientists and doctors, we all know is there, but we, for some reason, don't want to address it. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to even create scientific studies about it. I am not sure why that is. It seems to be almost like the boogeyman of science. And to me, it's like if anything exists in this reality, it must have some logical reason and explanation for it. I don't believe that stress is just some woo-woo magical universal effect. I believe that there has to be something in the laws of physics that defines exactly why we feel stress, how we carry stress, where it is, how it gets placed, and why it seems that it relates to the causation of disease. With this lack of information and this gaping hole in the scientific literature, it made me really curious, and I went out to seek what is stress, and I wanted to find out the answer to that. That's actually what really led me into this healing journey that I'm in right now. I mean, besides the fact that I was trying to heal myself, but I also was really curious about this in particular, and it really caused me to dive into the scientific literature as well as ancient Ayurvedic texts and even the ancient Chinese medicine texts such as the Yellow Emperor, and to find out what is stress. And from my studies and working alongside an intuitive healer here in Indonesia, I have come to a conclusion about what is stress, and I'm going to try to accurately, concisely, and simply describe it to you in a few minutes here. When we talk about stress as we use it in our common day language, we usually would say something like, you're stressed out and I need to relax so I can get rid of my stress. In this way that we use it, and for this definition, I believe stress to show up in this way. Stress is when the structure of our physiological and mechanical being tends to start breaking or taking on damage in some way, in some form. Because our body has a scaffolding that holds every single component together. It holds all our bones, it holds the muscles, it holds the organs, the skin, everything. It holds everything together, and it's responsible for every single tissue and the coordination between every tissue to other tissues, and the blood flow, the nerve flow, the lymph flow, the fluid flow into those tissues. Then this one structure is responsible and is linked to every single thing within our body, except for that of what's inside of each organ, gland, or the brain. With that being said, then this one structure would have the ability to cause so much damage or so many diseases or have so many negative effects when it comes to the electrical components of the human being, the physiological components of the human being, and the physical or mechanical components of the human being. This structure is called the extracellular matrix, or in some fields of study, it's referred to as the fascia. The fascia is a piezoelectric network of fibers made of collagen. And the structure is what keeps our body together, and it does so really well. In fact, collagen in each fiber for the size is actually 5 to 10 times stronger than steel. So it has a huge capability to be able to create tension within our body to make sure that we don't fall apart. And then secondly, the fascia is also known to be piezoelectric. What that means is that not only does electricity flow through this kind of spiderweb-like structure that holds everything together, but it also is able to create electromagnetic fields that can potentially be used to communicate between tissues or organs or even outside of our body, as have been measured by companies like HeartMath. Now, with this kind of potential, it means that this structure can affect directly the physiological components of our body, such as the cellular metabolism, as well as the electrical components, such as the meridians or the electrical channels that flow through our body that create emotions, and the mechanical components of our body, which would be like affecting the way that muscles move or our limbs move such as like having a bad knee or a hip impairment to where you can't walk straight. Having one structure or one thing about our body that can affect every single dimension of our experience and every single tissue and every organ is causation for me to believe that if we do feel this idea of stress, maybe the extracellular matrix or the fascia is not the only thing, but I would be willing to bet that it is probably at least 90% of the total sum of what we believe or what we experience as daily stress. So if you think about it, if we have this idea of stress and it comes from the extracellular matrix taking on damage, and this is where things can go wrong, because if you have a structure like this and it's woven with interstitial spacing that's supposed to be equal, but then damage happens and there's a certain torsion or disconfiguration, then blood vessels cannot get through, then nerves cannot get through, then lymph vessels cannot get through, and fluids cannot get through. Suddenly you have cells that are trapped within this broken matrix that cannot get the blood they need, they can't get the nutrients, they can't get the oxygen, and they're going to be building up waste because their fluids cannot carry it away. When this happens, then you have a cell, which is an independent operating machine, not getting the necessary ingredients that it needs to operate. If you think of each cell being like a pet, like imagine, like, it's horrible to imagine that, but like not giving your pet enough food or water or even like light or area to move around, you know, the pet is going to become very weak, maybe irritated over time, and won't be able to have good emotions or anything like that. And so if you think of each one of your cells as taking care of a pet, and some of your cells, and especially maybe brain cells or cells in one of your organs, if they become malnourished because the matrix becomes damaged and like their cage no longer gets the nutrients, no longer gets the oxygen, no longer gets the water that it needs, then these cells are going to feel really bad. They're not going to be able to perform their physiological function, and their integrity is going to become compromised because they can't maintain equilibrium in a harmful environment. And because of this, you are going to experience tissues becoming crippled on a macro level. And then when tissues become crippled, say in an electric channel or in an organ, well, then it's going to create major impairments in the way that we are able to produce emotions and the way that we are able to perform basic physiological functions such as digestion, such as blood pressure, such as being able to control the cellular replication, and many other things in our body, even producing emotions. And so if you think about that aspect, maybe when you were a kid, you might have done something and you felt like a lot of joy and it was really fun. And nowadays, if you do that same thing, maybe like playing on the monkey bars or playing on the jungle gym, you might feel feelings of like boredom, apathy, or possibly even frustration, depending how long you're there. And what is the difference? Is the difference that you're just grown up and you're so mature and now these things are just not interesting for you? Or if you remember back, can you remember a difference in the level of joy that you would get from even just the simplest things to nowadays where most people have to have a few drinks in order to experience that level of joy again? And this difference is what would happen if the extracellular matrix is damaged around the organs that create the electromagnetic pulsations that are responsible for those emotions. So by reducing the amount of damage to this physiological structure, we can increase the amount of blood flow, fluid flow, nerve flow, lymph flow to each and every cell in our body. And then that's on the microscopic scale, but if you're on a macroscopic scale, we now go from a poorly functioning tissue, which would be a poorly functioning organ, to a well optimized and perfectly functioning physiology in every tissue and every organ. And if all the pieces of the body are functioning at their peak efficiency because there's no damage, then the whole body will feel well. Like you'll be able to easily create positive emotions. You'll be easily able to have seemingly unlimited energy. You'll be easily able to handle stressful situations while taking on very little because your structure and your vitality will be 100% intact. And that's like in an ideal. But in order to get there, it, for most of us, is going to be a long road because we've gone through many years of life. And since when we were a small baby, we were brought into this environment. And through this environment, every single day, things happen. Trauma happens, stress happens, from many different kinds of stress, whether it be emotional stress, whether it be from breathing in toxins or eating food that's contaminated, or whether it be from like physical things that you do, like sports and just getting injuries. I've been through a number of surgeries myself. All of these things damage the physiological and the physical structure of the body. All of that adds up over the years. And if it's not fixed, then what happens is you tend to have this injury, and say it's a small injury early on, but it comes with compounding interest. The reason is that when damage happens in the matrix, then the forces of the damaged area will tend to pull inward from every direction. So if you think of a spider web that is well structured, you can be able to poke the spider web and it should elastically snap back into place. However, if a structure loses its elasticity, then when you poke it, then it just stays solid. And that solidness, it will pull in every direction equally. Then according to the laws of physics, for every action, there must be an equal and opposite reaction. So when one damaged area of your body starts pulling, say with X amount of kilograms of force, then you're going to have another part of your body that is required to pull with that equal amount of force. And now you created a line of tension between 2 points in your body. When we're young, usually around early teenage years, this usually happens around the spine. It's very common for children to get some level of scoliosis or curvatures in their spine. This happens because the spinal column has large amounts of energy coming out from the nerves that innervate the organs. And when the organ becomes irritated, that disruption of unharmonious energy signatures coming through the nerves cause a disruption in the extracellular matrix around the back. And it causes it to start crippling because it's like sending maybe like a 220 volt charge through a 120 volt charger. And it's not meant to do that. And so basically the electrical system is going to start frying. Like if you imagine like a computer, you spill coffee on and sparks are flying. And so this damage is going to happen to the matrix around the back for many people. And when that happens, the muscle is going to start tensing up. And now nothing is wrong with the muscle. People might think like, oh, well, I've had this muscle sore for a long time. It's just a sore muscle in my back. But the reality is that muscle tissue, it heals generally within about 3 to 5 days, sometimes longer for major tears. If you think about maybe the last time you worked out and you had sore muscles, and say you went really hard at the gym, you got back home, the next day you were really sore, then you were kind of sore, then you were a little bit sore. The fourth day you were absolutely fine. This is the speed of muscle rejuvenation. However, many people experience soreness in their muscles and it goes on for many, many, many years. If muscle tissue only takes a few days to regenerate, then for a yearly basis, what is keeping that muscle sore? This is where we go into the extracellular matrix, because the matrix, also known as the fascia, involves muscles a lot because we have those myofascial fibers, and the muscle cells bunch together into myofibrils, which is basically like a tube of muscle, and then it gets wrapped with myofibers. And those fibers are part of the extracellular matrix. And when that decays, or when that becomes crippled or malformed, then you're going to have that same issue. The muscle cells cannot get the blood they need, they can't get the oxygen, which means that they cannot produce ATP. And the way that muscle cells work is that when in a relaxed state, the muscle cell itself inside is full of ATP. And then you're going to have the contraction, which is stimulated by the neuromuscular junction. From that contraction, it pulls the ATP out of the muscle cell. And then what happens is there's like a latching between the protein fibers, and it goes latch, 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 and the fibers come together, creating muscle contraction. Then only through adding more ATP into the surrounding area of that muscle fiber can it relax again. However, ATP cannot be created if there is no carbohydrate and oxygen delivery to the cell, which is needed for muscle relaxation, and only can come from the extracellular matrix being in a proper shape so that the blood vessels can get through. So when you have these muscles that are sore for a long time, there's nothing wrong necessarily with the muscle. After a while, the muscle will develop issues itself, but the origination of the issue is actually what goes around the muscle, and it's more so the flow and delivery in and out of the muscle that's causing it to continue being locked up for even possibly years, and sometimes even the rest of people's lives. If you think about it this way, the body is always healing. Every single day, the body's replacing cells that are broken, and it's adding nutrients into each of the cells. Certain tissues take only a few days to be completely replaced. The skin is just a matter of days. Heart cells get replaced in a matter of a few weeks. And I think almost every single cell in your body within a year will be completely replaced. So if you think about it, 1 year ago from today, you had a completely different body back then. And in the last year, the food that you ate is the body that you have today. So you built a completely new human being. However, you built all the same problems that you had a year ago in today. Now that's a problem, right? So why is that? Why is it that we can have, say, these diseases 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and the same few years later, we still have the same diseases and the same problems that we're dealing with? To me, if you're building a whole new body every single year, we should have a whole new opportunity to ideally build a human body that's in perfect working condition. What would be keeping that from happening? And what I believe keeps that from happening is the damage to the extracellular matrix. So that's why I believe that the extracellular matrix is the #1 key factor in how stress relates to our body physiologically, electrically, and mechanically, creating this really bad experience of being stressed that relates to so many chronic diseases. It's estimated that about 90% of all disease on Earth is related to stress. I believe that if we can just solve stress, rather than trying to fix diseases once they occur, that we can preventatively take care and manage our body, our health, our mind, so that we can live well in the time that we have. My minister once told me, it's not about how many years are in your life, but rather how much life is in your years. And I take that to heart to mean that, yeah, taking care of your health doesn't seem like the coolest thing to do. It's not the exact topic of conversation you want to have at a party, but it is going to determine your experience, how much joy, how much fulfillment that you can get from this one lifetime, this one precious experience that we have here on earth. And for me, I want to take every moment of that to get the most. And to do that, like, I have to take care of my body. I have to reduce the stress. And furthermore, I think it's super important to go into the stress, understand exactly what it is. And so that when we understand exactly what stress is, we understand that it's just damage. At the end of the day, we are human beings. We have a body. It's a biological machine consisting of about 10 trillion nanomachines, the most phenomenal creation in the known universe. And just like every other machine, it can take damage. And so it's up to us to take responsibility, to fix the damage so that we can control our health, our vitality, our emotions, and live the life that we deserve to live. Live a life full of joy, live a life full of enthusiasm. As a healer in training, this is one of the key fundamental points of understanding that allows me to heal not only myself and regenerate my organs and my body and my mind, but it also allows me to heal other people and be able to see the exact damage in their body so that I can heal them too. Once you understand stress, and once you understand how that kind of damage to the extracellular matrix can take place and the effects that it can cause, then you can understand how to reverse engineer that. And this whole series is exactly about that. We want to be able to take control of our health by understanding what we need to know in order to fix it. And so hopefully this video gave you a good introduction as to what is stress, how it affects everything else in our body, and how we can understand better to fix that. Now, even though that, maybe this idea seems ethereal to a lot of people, but really stress is just according to the laws of physics. And if we stop treating it like a boogeyman, but rather just treat it like, hey, there's just damage and we can fix it. Now your health is in your control. With that, best of luck on your healing journey. I hope you found this video useful. If you could think of someone who might benefit from this information, then please feel free to share this video or series with them. Also, please feel free to check out the other videos in this channel, as we're producing almost a video a week with the intention of bringing you tools to help you transform your mind so that you can improve your mental and physical performance. If you would like to support our mission to provide mental wellness to the world, then please consider making a tax-deductible donation to the NutriCure Foundation, for which is a link in the description. And I look forward to helping you create a better you.